The Fall from Grace. Welcome to Twisted Heartstrings. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more captivating stories. The Golden Cage. Victoria Sterling stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker to life below. At 24, she had everything most people dreamed of: a corner office in Sterling Technologies, a walk-in closet filled with designer clothes, and a diamond engagement ring that caught the light with every gesture. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman who belonged in magazines. Honey blonde hair styled in perfect waves, a tailored cream suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and eyes the color of storm clouds. But tonight, those eyes held something dark, a shadow of doubt that had been growing for weeks. "Miss Sterling, your car is ready," her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Victoria pressed the button without turning. "Thank you, Jennifer. Go home. You've stayed late enough." The office fell silent after Jennifer left. Victoria gathered her things slowly, her mind replaying the strange phone call she'd received that afternoon. A woman's voice, disguised and muffled, had whispered just 5 words: "Check Marcus's phone tonight." Then the line went dead. Marcus Chun, her fiancé of 8 months. The man who had swept her off her feet at a charity gala, who knew exactly what to say, who fit perfectly into her world of board meetings and society events. The man she was supposed to marry in 3 months. Victoria shook her head, dismissing the paranoid thought. Marcus loved her. Everyone said so. Her father had approved of him before the heart attack that took him 2 years ago. Even her stepmother, the ice-cold Catherine Sterling, had called Marcus suitable. Still, as she rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Victoria couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Seeds of doubt. The Sterling mansion sat on 5 acres of manicured grounds in the most exclusive neighborhood of Riverside Heights. Victoria's childhood home had become less welcoming after her father's death, when Catherine had redecorated everything, erasing the warm touches Victoria's real mother had left behind before dying when Victoria was 7. Tonight, the house blazed with lights. Catherine was hosting another dinner party. Victoria had forgotten. She parked her silver Mercedes and sat for a moment, gathering her strength. These parties were exhausting, filled with fake smiles and business talk, everyone calculating what they could gain from each conversation. Marcus's black BMW was already in the circular driveway. He must have arrived early. Victoria entered through the side door, hoping to slip upstairs and change before making an appearance. The sound of laughter drifted from the dining room. She recognized Marcus's deep voice, then another laugh that made her freeze. Elena, her stepsister's high, musical laugh was unmistakable. Elena Sterling, Catherine's daughter from her first marriage, was everything Victoria was not: petite, dark-haired, with a sweetness that seemed effortless. At 22, Elena had returned from Paris 2 months ago, supposedly to work in Sterling Technologies' marketing department. Victoria told herself she wasn't jealous. Elena was family, after all. Family should be trusted. But that phone call nagged at her mind. She moved quietly toward the dining room, staying in the shadows of the hallway. Through the partially open door, she could see the long table set with Catherine's best china. A dozen guests mingled with drinks, but Victoria's eyes locked on 2 figures standing close together near the fireplace. Marcus and Elena. They weren't touching, but something about their body language made Victoria's stomach clench. Elena's hand rested on the mantelpiece, inches from Marcus's arm. He was leaning in, saying something that made Elena smile. Not the public smile she wore for strangers, but something private and knowing. "Victoria, darling, there you are." Catherine's voice made Victoria jump. Her stepmother appeared in the hallway, elegant in a black cocktail dress, her silver hair swept up flawlessly. Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did. "I didn't expect you home so early," Catherine said, her tone suggesting Victoria's presence was inconvenient. "I live here," Victoria replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Of course, darling. But you look exhausted. Why don't you freshen up? Dinner won't be served for another hour." Marcus is already here, keeping Elena company. Catherine's eyes gleamed with something Victoria couldn't quite read. "They've become such good friends since she returned. It's wonderful to see." The words felt like needles under Victoria's skin. The discovery. Victoria's bedroom suite occupied the entire east wing of the mansion. It had been her sanctuary since childhood, but tonight it felt suffocating. She locked the door and leaned against it, her heart pounding. Check Marcus's phone tonight. The mysterious caller's words echoed in her mind. Victoria hated the idea of snooping, of being that kind of woman who doubted her partner. But she couldn't unhear what she'd heard. Couldn't unsee the way Marcus and Elena had stood together. She changed into a simple black dress, her hands shaking slightly as she fastened the zipper. In the mirror, she looked pale, uncertain. Not like the confident heiress everyone expected her to be. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Where are you? Missing you at dinner." Victoria stared at the message. 3 little words that should have reassured her. Instead, they felt hollow. She typed back, "Coming down now." Dinner was torture. Victoria sat between Marcus and one of Catherine's business associates, a silver-haired man who talked endlessly about his yacht. Marcus held Victoria's hand under the table, squeezed it affectionately, kissed her cheek when he thought people were watching. He was perfect. Too perfect. Across the table, Elena caught Victoria's eye and smiled warmly. "Victoria, your dress is gorgeous." "Is it new?" "Yes," Victoria managed. "Thank you. You always have the best taste," Elena continued. "I wish I had your eye for fashion. And your business sense. Everyone at the office talks about how brilliant you are." The compliments should have felt genuine. Instead, they made Victoria's skin crawl. After dessert, the guests moved to the drawing room for drinks. Marcus excused himself to take a phone call, leaving his jacket draped over his chair. Victoria watched him step onto the terrace, phone pressed to his ear. Her moment had come. Heart hammering, Victoria glanced around. Catherine was holding court near the piano. Elena was laughing with 2 of the younger guests. No one was watching. Victoria's hand slipped into Marcus's jacket pocket. Her fingers closed around his phone. The truth in pixels. The bathroom off the main hallway became Victoria's hiding place. She locked the door with trembling hands and stared at Marcus's phone screen. It required a password. She tried his birthday. Wrong. She tried their anniversary. Wrong. Then, with a sinking feeling, she tried Elena's birthday. The phone unlocked. Victoria's breath caught. She told herself there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe Marcus had changed his password recently and used the first date that came to mind. Maybe it meant nothing. But her hands kept scrolling. The text messages loaded. Most were business-related, client meetings, conference calls. Then she found a thread labeled simply E. The first message made Victoria's vision blur. E. I can't stop thinking about yesterday. You make me feel alive. Marcus, you're dangerous. What if Victoria finds out? E. She won't. She trusts me. She trusts you. That's what makes this so perfect. Victoria's hands shook so badly, she almost dropped the phone. She scrolled up, reading weeks of messages. Stolen moments. Secret meetings. Plans to be together. But it was the most recent messages, from just 3 days ago, that destroyed her. E. Mother says the board meeting is set for next month. Once Victoria signs over her proxy votes, we can push her out entirely. Marcus, and the merger with Chin Industries? E. Already arranged. Mother's been planning this for years. Victoria never suspected a thing. Poor trusting Victoria. Marcus, I almost feel bad. She really loves me. E. Please. She loves the idea of you. The perfect husband for the perfect heiress. She doesn't see you like I do. Marcus, when this is over, we'll have everything. The company, the money, and each other. E. I can't wait. I'm tired of playing the sweet little sister. Victoria's stomach lurched. She barely made it to the toilet before she was sick. The web of lies. The bathroom floor was cold marble under Victoria's knees. She sat there for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. Her entire world had shattered like glass, each piece cutting deeper than the last. Marcus didn't love her. He never had. Elena wasn't her friend or her sister. She was a snake who had slithered close, pretending affection while plotting Victoria's destruction. And Catherine, Victoria's stepmother, had been orchestrating everything. The merger, the betrayal, the plan to steal Sterling Technologies, the company Victoria's father had built from nothing. A sharp knock on the door made Victoria jump. Victoria? Are you all right? Marcus's concerned voice filtered through the wood. Victoria stared at the door, her mind racing. She wanted to scream, to throw open the door and confront him with the truth. But something stopped her. Some survival instinct that whispered, not yet. They're dangerous. They've been planning this. You need to be smart. She flushed the toilet, ran water in the sink, and checked her reflection. Her face was pale but composed. Years of society training helped her mask emotions when necessary. "I'm fine," she called back, injecting false brightness into her voice. "Something I ate disagreed with me." She opened the door. Marcus stood there, handsome and concerned, his dark eyes scanning her face. "You look pale. Should I take you home?" Home. As if this mansion was still her home when everyone in it wanted to destroy her. "No," Victoria said carefully. "I think I just need some air. Maybe a walk in the garden." Marcus smiled, relieved. "I'll come with you." Actually, Victoria touched his arm lightly, forcing herself not to recoil. "I'd rather be alone for a few minutes. My head is pounding." Concern flickered across his features. Real or fake? Victoria couldn't tell anymore. "Of course. I'll make your excuses to Catherine. Take all the time you need, love." Love. The word felt like poison. Victoria walked through the house on autopilot, grabbing her coat from the front closet. She needed to think, to plan. The garden was too close, too easy for someone to follow her. She needed to disappear, just for an hour, to process everything. Her car keys were in her purse. Without fully thinking it through, Victoria walked to her Mercedes and started the engine. The long road. Victoria drove without direction, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The city lights blurred past, becoming ribbons of gold and red in her tear-filled vision. How had she been so blind? The signs had been there. Marcus's sudden interest in her business decisions. Elena's convenient return from Paris right when Catherine started pushing for Victoria to consolidate her board voting power. They friendly suggestions that Victoria should spend more time on charity work, less time in the office. They had been trying to push her aside all along. Victoria's phone rang. Catherine's name flashed on the screen. She ignored it. Another call. Marcus this time. Ignored. A text from Elena. "Victoria, where are you?" Everyone's worried. Victoria wanted to laugh. Worried. They were probably worried she'd figured out their plan. The city gave way to suburbs, then to open highway. Victoria kept driving, following the coast road that wound north toward the mountains. Rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers beat a hypnotic rhythm. Her phone rang again and again. She turned it off. The road curved sharply ahead. Victoria took the turn too fast, her tires squealing. She needed to slow down, to think clearly, but her foot stayed heavy on the accelerator. Another curve, sharper this time. The rain was coming down in sheets now, making the road slick and treacherous. Victoria saw the headlights in her rearview mirror too late. A black SUV was behind her, driving aggressively, its high beams blinding. It accelerated, pulling up alongside her on the narrow road. Victoria's heart raced. There wasn't room for two cars on this stretch. She honked, trying to signal the driver to fall back. The SUV didn't slow. Instead, it swerved toward her. Metal screamed against metal as the SUV sideswiped Victoria's Mercedes. She fought for control, but the rain-slicked road offered no mercy. Her car hydroplaned, spinning wildly. Time seemed to slow. Victoria saw the guardrail approaching, saw the cliff edge beyond it, saw her life flashing before her eyes. Not the happy moments, but all the lies, all the betrayal, all the wasted trust. The impact was thunder and lightning combined. The guardrail crumpled. The Mercedes went airborne. Then there was only darkness, and the sound of rain, and the distant crash of waves against rocks far below. Awakening in shadows. Pain was the first thing Victoria felt. Not the sharp, bright pain of fresh injury, but the deep, throbbing ache of healing bones and bruised organs. Her eyelids were heavy, refusing to open at first. When they finally did, she saw white ceiling tiles swimming in and out of focus. A hospital? No. The ceiling was residential, with wooden beams instead of fluorescent lights. A ceiling fan turned lazily above her, its blades casting moving shadows. "Easy now. Don't try to sit up yet." The voice was male, deep and calming. Victoria's head turned slowly, every movement sending new waves of pain through her body. A man sat in a chair beside the bed, early 30s, dark hair slightly too long, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. His face was kind, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though right now his expression was serious. "Where?" Victoria's voice came out as a croak. Her throat was raw. "You're safe," the man said. "You're in my cottage. My name is James Morrison. I'm a doctor. Well, I was a doctor. It's complicated." He reached for a glass of water on the nightstand, holding it to her lips. Small sips. The water was cool and sweet. Victoria drank gratefully, her mind trying to piece together what had happened. The dinner party. The phone. Marcus and Elena's messages. The drive. The crash. "My car," she whispered. "I went over the cliff." James nodded slowly. "You did. I was fishing on the beach below when I heard the crash. Your car landed in the water, but it didn't sink immediately. I got you out before." He trailed off, his jaw tightening. "You're lucky to be alive." Lucky. Victoria wasn't sure that was the right word. "How long have I been here?" 3 days. You had a concussion, broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, and more bruises than I could count. I said what I could, but you need proper medical care. I was about to call an ambulance when you woke up." "No." The word came out sharper than Victoria intended. "No hospitals. No police. No one can know I'm alive." James's eyebrows rose. "That's a dangerous thing to say. Who are you running from?" Victoria closed her eyes. Who wasn't she running from? "Everyone," she whispered. When she opened her eyes again, James was studying her face. "I pulled your ID from your purse," he said quietly. "Victoria Sterling. I've seen you on the news. The Sterling Technologies heiress. They're saying you're missing. There's a search party looking for your car in the ocean." Victoria's heart clenched. "They want me dead," she said flatly. "The people I trusted most. They've been planning it. If I go back now, they'll finish what they started." James was quiet for a long moment. "That's quite an accusation. I have proof." Victoria tried to sit up, gasping at the pain. "My phone. In my purse. There are messages." "Your phone was destroyed in the crash," James interrupted gently. "And your purse was mostly ruined by seawater." "I'm sorry." The news hit Victoria like a physical blow. Without that evidence, she had nothing. Just her word against theirs. And who would believe her? Catherine Sterling, respected businesswoman. Elena, the sweet younger sister. Marcus Chun, the devoted fiancé. They would paint Victoria as unstable, paranoid, maybe even suicidal. "Then I'm dead anyway," Victoria said hollowly. "Not necessarily." James leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "But if what you're saying is true, if someone really tried to kill you, then staying dead might be your best option. At least until you figure out how to fight back." Victoria stared at him. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." James was quiet for a moment, his eyes distant. "Let's just say I understand what it's like when the people you trust turn out to be monsters," he said finally. "And I don't like bullies. Never have." Outside, the rain had stopped. Through the window, Victoria could see pine trees and a slice of gray ocean. This place felt like the edge of the world, far from everything she'd known. Maybe that was exactly where she needed to be. "If I stay dead," Victoria said slowly, "I'll need a new name. A new identity." James nodded. "I can help with that. I have connections. People who owe me favors." And then, James said, a hint of steel entering his voice, "You get strong. You heal. You plan. And when you're ready, you go back and take everything they stole from you." Victoria looked at this stranger who had saved her life, who was offering her a lifeline when she had nothing left. "Why?" she asked again. "Why risk this for me?" James smiled, but it was sad. "Because 3 years ago, I needed someone to believe me when I said the hospital I worked for was covering up medical malpractice. Nobody did. I lost everything. My career, my reputation, my fiancé. I came here to hide, to give up. But maybe," he met her eyes, "maybe I can help you avoid making the same mistake I did. Maybe together, we can prove that the truth still matters." In that moment, Victoria Sterling made a choice. She would disappear. She would become someone new. And she would spend every day planning her return. Not for revenge, though that desire burned hot in her chest. For justice. For truth. For the company her father had built with his own hands. "All right," she said, her voice stronger now despite the pain. "Tell me what I need to do." Victoria Sterling died in that crash. But whoever I become next. Her storm gray eyes hardened to steel. "She's going to make them all pay." James nodded slowly. "Then let's begin." To be continued in part 2, Becoming the Shadow. What will Victoria's new identity be? How will she plan her return? Will her feelings for James complicate everything? Like and subscribe to find out. Becoming the Shadow. Welcome back to Twisted Heartstrings. If you missed part 1, check it out now. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling stories. The Ghost in the Mirror. Victoria stared at her reflection in the small bathroom mirror of James's cottage, barely recognizing the woman looking back. 2 weeks had passed since the crash, and the bruises on her face had faded from deep purple to yellow-green. The cut above her eyebrow was healing into a thin scar. But it wasn't the physical changes that made her look like a stranger. It was something deeper, something in her eyes. The old Victoria Sterling had been soft, trusting, always seeing the best in people. This woman had harder eyes, eyes that had seen betrayal and survived. "Your hair needs to change," James said from the doorway, holding a cup of herbal tea. He'd been surprisingly good at taking care of her, changing bandages, making sure she ate, giving her space when she needed it. Victoria touched her honey-blonde hair, still matted and tangled from the accident. How different? Different enough that people won't immediately connect you to the heiress who died in that crash. James set the tea on the counter. "I know someone in the next town. She's a hairstylist who used to work in witness protection. She'll help." Witness protection. That's essentially what Victoria was now, a witness to her own attempted murder, hiding from the killers. Dark, Victoria decided suddenly. "I want it dark brown, almost black. And shorter. Much shorter." James nodded approvingly. "That'll work. We should also get you different clothes. Your style is too recognizable." Victoria looked down at the borrowed sweatpants and oversized sweater she was wearing, James's clothes, since everything she'd had was destroyed. "I used to spend thousands on designer outfits," she said quietly. "Now I'm wearing secondhand sweats and grateful for them." "Perspective is funny that way," James replied, a hint of something bitter in his voice. Learning to breathe again. The cottage sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, miles from the nearest town. James had bought it 3 years ago after his life imploded, seeking isolation. Now, that isolation was exactly what Victoria needed. Every morning, she woke to the sound of waves crashing against rocks. The first week, she could barely get out of bed without James's help. Her broken ribs screamed with every breath, and the concussion made her dizzy and nauseous. But Victoria refused to be weak. She'd been weak before, weak enough to let Catherine manipulate her, weak enough to miss the signs of Marcus's betrayal, weak enough to trust Elena's false sweetness. Never again. By the 3rd week, Victoria was walking outside, slowly at first, then with more confidence. The coastal air was cold and sharp, nothing like the climate-controlled luxury of her old life. She loved it. James walked with her sometimes, pointing out local birds, teaching her the names of the wildflowers that grew in stubborn patches along the cliff edge. He never pushed her to talk about what happened, but he was always there when she wanted to. "Tell me about the hospital," Victoria said one afternoon as they sat on a weathered bench overlooking the ocean. "You said they covered up malpractice." James was quiet for so long Victoria thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke, his voice measured. "I was a surgeon at Memorial Grace Hospital in Seattle. 3 years ago, I noticed a pattern: patients dying or suffering severe complications after routine procedures. Always the same attending physician, Dr. Richard Vance. He was the hospital's golden boy, brought in huge donations, had connections to the board." "You investigated?" Victoria guessed. "I reported it through proper channels. Asked for an internal review." James's jaw tightened. Vance found out. He had friends everywhere: the hospital administrator, the medical board, even my department head. They buried my concerns, then turned it around. Suddenly, I was the problem. Accusations started flying. That I was jealous of Vance, that I was unstable, that I'd made errors in my own surgeries. Victoria's hands clenched. She knew the story. Different players, same script. "They destroyed your career," she said softly. "Completely. Medical license suspended pending investigation. My fiancé, who was also a doctor at the hospital, believed their version. Said I was paranoid, self-destructive. She left me." James stared at the horizon. The investigation dragged on for a year. By the time they quietly cleared me, my reputation was gone. No hospital would hire me. My savings were depleted from legal fees. So I came here. And Dr. Vance? Still practicing. Still killing patients through negligence. Still collecting awards. The bitterness in James's voice was sharp enough to cut. That's what I learned, Victoria. The system protects its own. If you want justice, you can't rely on playing by their rules. Victoria absorbed his words. Then we make new rules. James turned to look at her, something like approval in his dark eyes. Now you're thinking like a survivor. The transformation. Sarah Chun, no relation to Marcus, thankfully, ran a small salon in the town of Clearwater, 30 miles up the coast. She was a tiny woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. James called ahead, Sarah said, circling Victoria like a sculptor examining marble. Said you needed a complete change. New identity. Victoria hesitated, but James nodded reassuringly. Sarah's helped people disappear before. She's trustworthy. Running from an abusive ex, Victoria said, using the cover story they'd agreed on. It wasn't entirely a lie. Marcus had been trying to destroy her, which felt like its own form of abuse. Sarah's expression softened. Say no more. I'll make you unrecognizable. Sit. For hours later, Victoria stared at a stranger in the salon mirror. Her honey blonde hair was now a rich, dark chocolate brown, cut in a sharp bob that ended at her jawline. Sarah had added subtle layers that changed the shape of her face, making her look older, more sophisticated. Glasses, Sarah said, producing a pair of stylish black frames. Non-prescription, but they'll change your face shape even more. Victoria put them on. The woman in the mirror could have been Victoria Sterling's distant cousin, similar but distinctly different. Perfect, James said from behind her. There was something in his voice that made Victoria glance at him. He was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read, approval mixed with something else. Something warmer. Thank you, Victoria told Sarah, meaning it deeply. The older woman squeezed her shoulder. Stay safe, honey. And when you're ready to face whatever you're running from, face it on your own terms. Building the new identity. Back at the cottage, James spread documents across the kitchen table. Vera Storm, he said, pushing a birth certificate toward her. Born in Portland, Oregon. 26 years old. Bachelor's degree in business from Oregon State. No criminal record, no red flags. Victoria, Vera, picked up the birth certificate. It looked completely authentic. How did you get this? I told you I had connections. A friend who specializes in helping people start over. It's completely legitimate. The real Vera Storm died as an infant, but the records weren't properly filed. This identity has been dormant for decades. Vera ran her finger over the embossed seal. Vera Storm, she said aloud, testing how it felt on her tongue. I like it. It sounds strong. It should match who you're becoming. James pushed more documents forward. Driver's license, social security card, employment history. You worked in marketing for a small tech company in Portland that went under last year. That explains why you're looking for new opportunities. You've thought of everything. I've had 3 years to think about what I wish I'd done differently, James said quietly. When they came after me, I fought in the open. I trusted the system to protect me. I was naive. You don't have to make the same mistake. Vera met his eyes. So what's the plan? I can't hide here forever. No, you can't. But you're not ready yet either. James pulled out his laptop. First, you need to know what you're walking back into. Let me show you what's been happening since you died. The web they wove. The news articles made Vera's stomach turn. The headlines painted a tragic picture. Sterling heiress dies in tragic accident. Victoria Sterling's death shocks business world. Memorial service held for beloved philanthropist. But it was the interviews that revealed the real story beneath the public mourning. Catherine Sterling, dressed in elegant black, her face composed with just the right amount of grief. Victoria was troubled. She'd been under tremendous pressure at work. I tried to help her, but she wouldn't accept support. The night she died, she seemed agitated, upset. I fear she may have been struggling with depression none of us recognized. Marcus Chun, his handsome face appropriately devastated. I loved Victoria deeply. We were planning our wedding, our future together. But lately, she'd been distant, paranoid even. She accused me of things that weren't true. I think the stress of running the company was too much for her. I'll always regret that I couldn't help her in time. And Elena, with tears streaming down her face. My sister was brilliant but fragile. She never got over our father's death. Recently, she'd been making erratic business decisions, pushing away everyone who cared about her. I tried to reach her that last night, but she wouldn't answer my calls. I'll never forgive myself for not trying harder. Vera's hands shook as she closed the laptop. They're painting me as mentally unstable. Suicidal. It's a classic strategy, James said grimly. If anyone questions what happened, they've already established the narrative. Poor troubled heiress, overwhelmed by responsibility, drove off a cliff in a moment of crisis. No one will look for evidence of foul play. The SUV that ran me off the road was probably reported stolen hours before, dumped and burned afterward. Professional job. James leaned back in his chair. These people aren't amateurs, Vera. They've been planning this for a long time. Vera forced herself to breathe evenly. What about the company? What's happening with Sterling Technologies? James clicked through more articles. Catherine has taken over as interim CEO, citing the need for stable leadership during this difficult time. Elena has been promoted to VP of Operations. And Marcus Chen's company, Chen Industries, just announced a merger with Sterling Technologies. The board approved it unanimously 2 weeks ago. My proxy votes, Vera whispered. Catherine must have forged my signature before the accident. Probably. By the time anyone could question the documents, you were conveniently dead. James pulled up financial reports. The merger makes Chun and your stepmother the 2 largest shareholders. They're untouchable now. Vera stood abruptly, ignoring the twinge in her healing ribs. She paced to the window, staring out at the ocean. So they've won. They got everything they wanted. They think they've won, James corrected. But they're missing one crucial element. What's that? You. James came to stand beside her. You're alive. You know the truth. And you're angry enough to fight back. That's more dangerous to them than any proxy vote. Vera turned to look at him. You really think I can take them down? I think you can do anything you set your mind to. James's voice was quiet but intense. But it won't be easy. You'll need to get close to them without being recognized. You'll need evidence they can't deny. And you'll need patience. This could take months. I've got nothing but time, Vera said, steel in her voice. And I've got nothing left to lose. Skills for survival. The next 6 weeks became a crash course in survival and strategy. James, it turned out, had more skills than just medicine. His father had been a private investigator, and James had learned the trade before going to medical school. Every morning, Vera ran along the coastal path, building her strength back. Her ribs stopped aching. Her coordination returned. She pushed herself harder each day, knowing she needed to be physically ready for whatever came next. In the afternoons, James taught her how to research without leaving digital footprints, how to read corporate financial statements and spot irregularities, how to use social media to gather information without alerting targets, how to change her appearance subtly with makeup and clothing choices, how to adopt different mannerisms and speaking patterns. You need to become invisible, James explained one afternoon as they practiced. Not by hiding, but by blending in so completely that people look right through you. Vera practiced walking differently, shorter steps, less confident posture. She practiced changing her voice, making it slightly higher or lower, adding vocal patterns that differed from Victoria Sterling's educated, polished speech. At night, they strategized. James helped Vera map out the power structure at Sterling Technologies, identifying weak points and potential allies. They researched Marcus's business dealings, looking for anything questionable. They dug into Catherine's past, searching for skeletons. Here, James said one night, highlighting a paragraph in an old business journal. Catherine's first husband, Elena's father, died in a car accident 15 years ago. Single vehicle collision, drove off a mountain road. Vera's blood ran cold. Just like me. Just like you. James confirmed grimly. Police ruled it an accident. He was alone in the car. But he'd been fighting Catherine for custody of Elena at the time. His life insurance policy was substantial. She's done this before, Vera whispered. It's not proof, James cautioned. But it's a pattern. And patterns are useful. As the weeks passed, Vera realized she was changing in ways that had nothing to do with her appearance. The woman who had trusted blindly, who had been generous to a fault, who had seen the best in everyone, that woman was gone. In her place was someone harder, sharper, more calculating. Sometimes Vera mourned the loss of her old self, but mostly she embraced it. Softness had nearly killed her. Hardness might save her. Unexpected feelings. Late one evening, After a particularly intense research session, Vera found James standing on the cottage's small deck, staring at the stars. She'd learned he did this when something was bothering him. "Can't sleep?" she asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the cold ocean breeze. "Thinking," James replied. He didn't look at her, but his jaw was tight. About what happens when you go back." Now he turned to face her. "You're almost ready. Another week or two, and you'll have everything you need to start the next phase. You'll return to the city, get a job at a competitor, work your way close to Sterling Technologies." "That's the plan," Vera agreed, confused by the tension in his voice. "And then what?" "You take them down, reclaim your company, and resume your old life." James's dark eyes were intense. What happens to Vera Storm? Vera hadn't thought that far ahead. "I suppose she disappears. Victoria Sterling comes back from the dead, literally. And me?" The question was quiet. "Do I disappear too?" Vera's breath caught. Over the past weeks, she'd grown used to James's presence. His steady calm, his sharp mind, the way he pushed her to be stronger without making her feel weak. The way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she wasn't watching. "James, I know this isn't the time," he interrupted. "I know you're focused on revenge, on justice, whatever you want to call it. And you should be. But I need you to know." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "These weeks with you have reminded me that I'm still alive. That I still matter. That maybe my life isn't over just because I lost my career." Vera stepped closer to him. "You saved my life.